He lived in a house where even the silence had rules. Every mirror in the Pierce home reflected perfection pressed shirts, quiet dinners, and the kind of family photos that looked like they belonged in a country club brochure. But no mirror in that house ever showed who Jaxon Pierce truly was. To the world outside, Jax was untouchable, a rising star from Los Angeles with millions of followers on TikTok, a Twitch streamer who made jokes faster than donations could roll in, and the proud son of Thomas Pierce, a real estate mogul known for building luxury homes and guarding his own like fortresses. Jax played the role flawlessly. He flirted with influencers at brand events. He let the internet label him dream boyfriend material. He showed up to every family dinner with a tailored jacket, a practiced smile, and no room for error. But behind closed doors, behind the locked door of his own room, he became someone else. His real sanctuary wasn't the hillside mansion or the view from the infinity pool. It was a username, a quiet identity on a hidden server. JP. He wasn't a marketing asset. He wasn't Thomas Pierce's legacy. He was just a young man scared to breathe too loudly in his own home. And yet, even in that digital dark, there was light, a stranger. Hidden behind the name INX Shadows had become something more than a screen name. Their late-night conversations filled with sketches, stories, and voice notes whispered under blankets made Jax feel visible for the first time in years. Not famous, not perfect, just real. But reality always finds a way to break through. One ordinary Thursday evening, Jax forgot to log out of his Discord account. His sister, Mia, borrowing his tablet to order coffee pods for their mother, tapped the wrong icon. And just like that, the carefully guarded wall cracked open. She didn't mean to read, she didn't mean to scroll, but she did. And what she found wasn't anything scandalous. There were no shocking photos, no drama, just feelings, raw, unfiltered thoughts, confessions typed in lowercase, about a boy named JP who didn't know if his father would still love him if he ever told the truth. A boy who felt like a ghost in his own house. Mia froze. She had always idolized Jax, the perfect brother, the golden child. But this was a person she didn't know. A version of him that was fragile, scared, and deeply alone. She closed the tablet slowly, as if afraid it might explode. She didn't tell anyone, but she stopped looking at Jax the same way. At dinner, she barely touched her food. She avoided his eyes. She asked him fewer questions, and Jax noticed. He noticed everything, because when you've spent your whole life performing, you always sense when someone finally sees through the curtain. If this moment touched something in you, stay with us. The story of Jax Pierce isn't just about secrets. It's about breaking cycles, confronting silence, and finding the courage to be seen. Follow Heart Stories to witness what happens when the golden child dares to live in color. Mia Pierce had always thought she understood her brother. He was the steady one, the one who made their father proud, who never talked back, who knew how to make even the coldest room laugh. At school, teachers would whisper how lucky she was to have him as a brother. Online, he was a sensation. In the family, he was the gold standard. But ever since that night she opened his Discord by accident, her world tilted. She kept replaying the words she'd read, not because they were scandalous, because they were so heartbreakingly human. There was a loneliness in those messages that haunted her more than any secret. Her brother, who had everything, who made people feel like they belonged, didn't feel like he belonged in his own home. At breakfast, she watched him pour coffee with practiced calm, laughing at their dad's latest story about a failed development deal. He wore a UCLA hoodie and ran a hand through his perfectly disheveled hair like nothing was wrong. But now, Mia noticed every pause between sentences, every moment his smile dropped when no one was looking, every breath held just a little too long. She wanted to say something, to reach across the table and whisper, "I know," but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she gave him a weaker smile. Jax noticed. He noticed too. when she stopped joining in on jokes, when she stayed in her room longer, when she lingered in the hallway, as if rehearsing something she couldn't bring herself to say. He didn't confront her, but the space between them grew heavier by the day, and Thomas noticed it too. As a father, Thomas Pierce prided himself on discipline and observation. He wasn't the type to leave things to chance. A successful man, he believed, could always read a room even when his own family tried to stay quiet. At first, he chalked it up to sibling tension, but then he noticed Jax missing morning runs, delaying content meetings, spending more time locked in his room. One evening, he caught sight of a notification flash across Jax's laptop before it disappeared. Nick's just uploaded a new sketch. It meant nothing to him, but it felt like something, and Thomas Pierce didn't like things he couldn't name. That night, he stood in Jax's doorway longer than usual. He didn't say a word, just watched his son, headphones on, eyes tired, staring at his screen like he was somewhere far away. Thomas clenched his jaw and walked away. In a house as rigid as theirs, silence wasn't absence. It was control. Mia, meanwhile, had taken to reading at night books she never imagined herself reaching for memoirs of LGBTQ+ youth, online forums, even academic papers. She wasn't trying to label her brother. She was trying to understand what it meant to carry something so heavy and still smile like it was nothing. The more she learned, the more her guilt gnawed at her. She had seen Jax's truth but done nothing to protect it. One night, unable to sleep, she knocked on his door. She didn't go in. She didn't even speak. She just stood there, fingers curling into fists. Jax opened the door, surprised. But Mia only said, "I couldn't sleep." Before turning and walking back to her room, it wasn't much, but Jax stood there a long while after she left. The curtain was slipping, slowly, quietly, and in a house where secrets were wrapped in silk and sealed with smiles, even a whisper could feel like an earthquake. It started with a calendar invite. Jax thought it was strange, his father, sending a formal event reminder titled Family Strategy Meeting. But in the Pierce household, everything had to sound like business. Dinner plans were engagements, birthdays were family milestones. So he showed up, Sunday, 7 p.m., the formal dining room, polished mahogany table, spotless crystal glasses. Eleanor had set the table herself, which was unusual. Mia sat stiffly, eyes down, fingers laced in her lap. Jax felt it before a word was spoken. Something wasn't right. Thomas Pierce stood at the head of the table like a judge. He didn't eat. He didn't ask about anyone's day. He only waited for the last fork to be placed down before clearing his throat. "We need to talk about you, Jaxon." The air thinned. "I've noticed changes," Thomas said. "Missed meetings, less online activity, a drop in engagement metrics, and lately, odd behavior." His gaze didn't blink. Jax held his breath. Mia gripped her chair. "There are rumors," Thomas continued. "Things being said about your image, associations, people you've been seen messaging. I've spoken with Ava. She's concerned. I'm concerned." Jax kept his voice steady. "Concerned about what?" Thomas didn't flinch. "About choices, about a direction that could harm your future and this family." He reached into his blazer, pulled out a folder, and slid it across the table. Inside were screenshots, Discord conversations, blurred profile icons, even a forum post from JP. "Do you think you're anonymous, son?" Thomas's voice was quiet but cutting. "This is the internet. Nothing disappears." Jax looked down at the papers. His words were there, his fears, his private thoughts, now dissected and printed in black and white. He felt naked, violated. "I don't care what this says about me," Thomas said, "but our name, our brand, cannot be compromised. So here are your options." That word options landed like a slap. "You can walk this back, say it was a phase, a social experiment. Your team can draft a public apology, something vague but sufficient. Then we'll arrange a few outings with the right people, girls, Of course, just enough to calm the speculation. And if needed, Thomas added, I've spoken with a counselor, one who specializes in correction. Eleanor's eyes widened. Thomas, no. His hand cut the air. I won't stand by while our son turns into a headline. Jax's voice cracked, but he didn't cry. So that's it. You'd rather I lie. I'd rather you act like the man I raised. Silence. Then Mia stood up. Her chair screeched against the floor. He is the man you raised. You just never cared to know who that really was. Thomas turned to her, stunned. But she didn't wait for permission. I saw it, she said. I read the messages, and it's not shameful, it's honest. More honest than anything we've ever said at this table. Jax looked at her for the first time in days. Eleanor's hands trembled, resting gently on her wine glass. She whispered, maybe we all need to stop pretending. But Thomas slammed the folder shut. Pretending is what kept this family successful. And if you want to keep your place in it, Jaxon, you will fall back in line. Jax stood. His chair didn't move. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Then maybe I don't belong in this family anymore. He left the dining room without looking back. Behind him, the Pierce home didn't break into yelling. No tears, just the same cold silence it always had, only this time. It wasn't enough to contain the truth. The house didn't feel like home anymore. After that night, Jax stopped coming down for dinner. He moved quietly, headphones always on, eyes fixed on the floor as he passed through the halls. No one mentioned the folder. No one brought up the words spoken at that table. But their silence echoed louder than any fight could. Thomas returned to his usual routine, as if nothing had happened. His days were filled with meetings, golf rounds, and headlines about real estate markets. Yet, every time he walked past Jax's closed door, there was a flicker of hesitation, a pause he never acknowledged. Eleanor, however, couldn't go back to pretending. She spent her nights sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at old photo albums she hadn't opened in years. Pictures of Jax as a child, bright-eyed, playful, free. Pictures before the rules tightened, before image overtook identity. She remembered the first time Thomas corrected their son's posture at age 6, telling him, chin up, shoulders back, like a Pierce. She had laughed then. Now she winced. One morning, she walked into the garage and opened a chest buried under boxes of winter coats and Christmas decorations. Inside, she found what she was looking for, a small wooden box, locked but not hidden. The key had always been taped beneath a drawer in Thomas's office. Inside the box were letters, dozens of them, faded envelopes, yellowed by time, all addressed to Thomas Pierce, all signed by the same hand. With love always, R. The writing was gentle, intimate. Some letters were long, others no more than a few lines, but all spoke of pain, of distance, of rejection, of waiting for an answer that never came. Eleanor read them slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. R wasn't just an old friend. He was Thomas's younger brother, a brother who had come out as gay at 19, a brother who was sent away, a brother who had written every year from different cities, Chicago, Denver, Seattle, begging Thomas to write back, apologizing for being a disappointment, promising he was trying to be better. The last letter was dated 15 years ago. It was unopened. Eleanor sat there for a long time, the box resting in her lap. The man she married had never once mentioned he had a brother, but now it made sense. The strictness, the fear, the obsession with control. Thomas wasn't just angry at Jax. He was haunted by the ghost of someone he failed. Upstairs, Mia was pacing her room. She hadn't spoken much since standing up to her father, but her thoughts never slowed. She kept thinking about what she saw on Jax's Discord, the art, the messages, the pain. She didn't want to just feel sorry anymore. She wanted to help. She searched how to support a gay sibling and found herself on a website called the Trevor Project. She read for hours, stories that broke her, stories that lifted her. And in one of them, She found a line that stuck. Sometimes your acceptance is the first time someone breathes freely. That night, she knocked on Jax's door again. "I'm not here to ask questions," she said. "I'm here to listen. If you want." Jax didn't speak right away, but he opened the door wider, and that was enough. Downstairs, Eleanor finally confronted Thomas. He was standing in his office, pouring a glass of bourbon, when she placed the box on his desk. He froze. "You told me he left the country," she said quietly. "You never said why." Thomas didn't answer. Eleanor continued. "You let your brother disappear, and now you're destined to make our son disappear too." "He's confused," Thomas muttered. "No," Eleanor replied. "He's brave. He's everything your brother wished he could be." Thomas stared at the box, then turned away. But for the first time in years, Eleanor didn't follow him. She stood her ground. That night, Jax received a message on his private account. It wasn't from Nawix's shadows. It was from Mia. Just one line. "I believe you deserve to be loved exactly as you are." He read it 3 times, and for the first time in days, Jax smiled, not for the camera, not for the fans, but for himself. The confrontation didn't come with shouting. It came with silence, the kind that settles over a home like dust after years of not being touched. It came with trembling voices and truths spoken slowly, like peeling off old wallpaper to reveal the cracks beneath. They gathered in the living room not by demand, but by decision. Eleanor, her hands folded firmly in her lap. Mia sitting beside Jax, not as the younger sibling, but as his shield. And Jax, no longer hiding behind posture or polite answers. Thomas entered last, as if he already knew what was waiting. Eleanor didn't waste time. "I found the letters." "Thomas," his eyes darkened. "You had no right." "No," she interrupted, gently but without hesitation. "You had no right to erase your brother, to carry that guilt and pour it into our son, to make Jax believe that being himself is something shameful." Thomas said nothing. Mia stood up next. "You say you built this family, but families aren't buildings. They're not held up by rules and appearances. They're held together by love. And you never gave Jax a chance to feel that." Jax didn't speak right away, but when he did, his voice was calm, not cold, not angry. "I'm not broken," he said. "I don't need fixing. I need a father who sees me. Not your version of me, not your legacy, just me." Thomas turned away, rubbing his hands together like trying to erase something he couldn't see. "I didn't want you to suffer like he did," he said finally. "I thought if I kept you in line, if I kept everything controlled, I could protect you." "But control is not protection," Eleanor whispered. "It's a cage." For a moment, no one spoke. And then Thomas sat down. He didn't apologize, not in words, but his shoulders dropped, his breathing slowed, and for the first time, he looked at his son without trying to correct him. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted. "You don't have to fix me," Jax replied. "Just try not to lose me." Days passed. Not everything changed, but some things did. Thomas agreed to attend a session with a family therapist. Eleanor took over Jax's brand emails, giving him time to just be. Mia began working on a campus podcast about identity and healing. And Jax, slowly, started living more openly, no longer as a persona, but as a person. He posted a video 1 week later. Not viral, not scripted, just him, sitting under soft light, holding a sketch gifted by Nick's shadows. He didn't label himself. He didn't explain every detail. He simply said, "For the first time in my life, I'm choosing to be honest, and that has to be enough." The comments poured in. Support, gratitude, stories from people who never had the chance to say the same. And in the quiet after the upload, Jax heard his father knock softly at the door. Not to talk, just to sit with him a while. Question for the audience. What do you think is the most important thing a child needs to feel truly loved and accepted by their own family. If this story made you see a part of yourself in it, whether as a child, a parent, a sibling, or simply someone who's ever felt misunderstood, stay with us at Hard Stories. Here, we tell stories that aren't perfect, but they're real because sometimes it's the cracks in a family where the light finally breaks through.